It's time to talk about the Saturday games for Super Rugby round 5. We have the Hurricanes against the Sunwolves, the Reds against the Sharks, the Stormers and the Blues, the Bulls and the Jaguares. If you want to check those out, the links will be up here or the timestamps, and you can also find it down in the comments below. Leave me a comment down below, also your prediction for each game, and also which game you are most excited for. I'm kind of trying to assemble some data to see which games you like the most. The first game for Saturday is the Hurricanes versus the Sunwolves. History, it is a done deal. It is Hurricanes 3 out of 3. Last year they only beat the Sunwolves by 6 points though, so it was a close one. The Sunwolves, they were more competitive last year, though they are a completely different team this year, so you can also factor that into the equation. The season so far for the two teams, the Hurricanes 2 out of 3 so far, with that loss to the Stormers by 27-0, and then they beat the Jaguares by 3 points in Argentina, and then the Sharks by 16 points in New Zealand. So that win over the Sharks was 2 weeks ago. They had a bye last weekend, so they could prepare well for this one. The players are pretty rested for this one. The Sunwolves, one victory they beat the Rebels, a shock victory there. I didn't call that on my predictions in Superbru. If you do play that, it is down in the links below. Then, as expected, they lost to the Chiefs, and then they got thumped by the Reds more than we did expect them to get thumped by 10 tries from the Reds. The Hurricanes, they made quite a few changes for this game. The biggest one, Jordie Barrett, is out of this game. He's being rested according to the All Black policy, and apparently he's going to play some golf over there in New Zealand, but I don't know much about that. He is a try scorer. He's a massive playmaker in their side. He's a big goal kicker for them. So how are they going to fare without him is the big question. The other change they made, switching one South African for another. Goosen is out and Van Wyk comes in. It is his first start for the side. He has bulked up a little bit if I look at the pictures. Fletcher Smith, he is at 10 with Gordon Bishop breaking his hand. That's a big blow for them. Gordon Bishop looked like he found his feet at number 10. Fletcher Smith, he's missing that little bit of attacking flair. Well, when he did play previously, the line didn't really play as well as you would expect a Hurricanes line to play. Karifi, he's also in the side and he's been in great form. The Sunwolves also made a bunch of changes. Alex Horan is in at number 15. He is the son of Wallaby legend Tim Horan. And then the new midfield for them, Moria and Nakano, is in, and they are preferred over Tio and Engelbrecht. Halfback pairing is also changed for them, so basically a whole new backline for them. And then there's moves in the front pack as well. The most notable being the two props being switched out for this one, who got hammered by the Reds, so they probably needed to switch around a little bit. The Hurricanes, they have one of the best scrums though, one of the best in the competition. I think it's one of the only scrums that still has a 100% record on their own feet. There's 3 teams left there, the Hurricanes, the Highlanders and the Stormers. That's now on Thursday before the Highlanders' next game. Both teams, they made a lot of changes. The Hurricanes, they lost Barrett, yes, but the team still looks better. The Sunwolves, their backline is a bit unknown, so it is difficult to make a call there. But I still think the Hurricanes will win by at least 24 points. Next up, it is the Reds versus the Sharks. Can the Sharks finish off a magical tour with 3 out of 4? That would be great for them. The Reds, they have only won 1 game so far. That was against the Sunwolves last weekend. They did score 10 tries against them though. So that was a great attacking performance by them. But the Sharks, they have a attack that has torn defenses to shreds so far in this season, but they can miss a couple of tackles if a team really strategizes well. The Reds can actually cut through them and score a couple of tries of their own, so we might expect a couple of tries in this one. History between them, 6 out of 10 for the Sharks. The last time the Sharks have won in Queensland is in 2015. The Sharks made a couple of changes for this game. Is back after his rest for the Springbok resting policy. Mapimpi, he is being rested this weekend for that same policy. That means Mvovo is in. The other changes in the side, Schroeder is in, Henku Venter is in, not James Venter, who's been making a lot of tackles for the Sharks. Richardson is in as well. And the thing to me is I've liked how Nohamba has fitted into the Sharks backline. He really speeds up the game. Shearer, he is a bit of a more conservative type of scrum half, but he's been there for a couple of seasons now. He's been good, so they'll probably do well with him there anyway. The two changes the Reds made, Scott Young is in and then Hawkins as well. The benches for the two sides, the Reds, they have the bigger bench too. Bigger names on the bench with the Wallaby Salakai Lotto on there. And they've mentioned him as an impact player for this game. They want to bring him on and let him impart some impact when he comes on. Daigunu, he is also back from his 5-week suspension from preseason. I think he scored 5 tries in preseason and then he got 5 weeks of suspension for something else. So he was on form just before his suspension. The Reds will want to make most of this week because next week they are traveling to Christchurch to face the Crusaders. So the Reds might be up for it in this game. They might want the best out of their team for this one. The biggest thing I want to see is James O'Connor versus Bosch. I think that's going to be a great battle in the back line. Campbell versus Fassi as well. The two fullbacks just have the ability to cut through back lines. Campbell, he had a great ability last week to join the back line. Nonetheless, I still think the Sharks are favourites for this one. Perhaps it might be a bit closer than people think. But the Sharks will pull away maybe later on. So I think the Sharks will win by 12. The third game for Saturday is the Stormers versus the Blues. The big question is the Stormers going to make it 5 from 5 and remain the only unbeaten team in the competition so far? For the Blues, they would want to make it a bit better for them. They would want to make it 3 from 5. 2 on the road in South Africa, not a bad return, is it? They're back in New Zealand next week to face the Hurricanes, so they'll want to make the best from this one because they're traveling through the week. They might not be favourites for next weekend. The Stormers, they are on a bye next week, so they would also want to make a lot of points in this one because the week after they are playing against the Sharks in Durban. So they also need points because that game could be a make or breaker if the Stormers do lose this one and that one. The history between the two sides, the Stormers have won 6 out of 10 between them, and the Blues haven't won in Cape Town since 2009. If we look closer at the teams, the Blues, the first big move that they have made, Ioane is back at number 13, and Marchant is at number 14. So an international quality winger is at center and the international quality center is at wing. Strange move that is, but hey, maybe they pull it off. Obviously the coaches know what they are doing. They wouldn't just likely do that. I think Rico Ioane is just going to be brought in a little bit closer to the action. I'm just actually sad to see Marchant being pushed out a little bit more. Maybe we see a bit more tries from him now. Fayane, he is also brought back into the side, so they don't have that 3 fly halves or that 3 number 10s on the field like last week against the Bulls. So they probably want more scorers in the side in this one to try and break through the line of the Stormers. They need big runners to break through that defense. Papali'i, he is also an important player in the side for the Blues to bring in, especially at breakdown time, and they will need a bit more to beat the Stormers than last weekend where they beat the Bulls by a very narrow margin. The Stormers are the strongest side in South Africa at the moment. Well, maybe the Sharks as well. But they'll need a lot more to beat the Stormers than they did against the Bulls. The Stormers, they had no injuries for a change. Only 2 changes in the side. Wilco Low comes in and Salman Murat is also out now with Van Zyl coming in. Malherbe is on the bench and like I said, Murat as well. These two are just as good as the starters. The Stormers scrum, they still have 100% record on their own throw like I said previously. So that's going to be good for them. The only thing I'm wondering about for the Blues in this game, the shuffling in that midfield for the Blues is interesting. I don't know if the running game is going to work better for this game. I think maybe having 3 kickers on the park, 3 number 10s, would have worked a little bit better to pin the Stormers back in their own half. but they do have Plummer on the bench, so that would help them. And yeah, look, the other argument is to have big runners on the park so that it's difficult to tackle them, but the Stormers defense has been holding up. The Stormers bench, again, it's a 6-2 split for one more game. Kobus Visa, he comes into the side, and then Bluasa, a very good scrummager. He doesn't look like a prop whatsoever, but he's still a good scrummager. The Stormers, I think they're still the strongest side in this one. I think they'll win by 8 points. The last game for the weekend is the Bulls versus the Jaguares. The Bulls 0 from 3 for the season so far. The Jaguares 2 from 4. So they'll want to improve if they want to do the same that they did last year in the Super Rugby. The Bulls, they have had 3 narrow losses so far, I actually think. I thought if they made some better decisions on the field, especially by the captaincy, different things would have happened. Maybe going for poles instead of going for the line. That's been a big issue with the Bulls. A lot of times they go for the line instead of going for the poles. I think that cost them against the Stormers, and I know that definitely cost them against the Blues last weekend. But they scored a try, so it's always difficult to even that out. The history between the two sides, the Jaguares have won 4 out of 6 games between these two sides. The Jaguares won last year 22-20 in Pretoria. If we have a closer look at the two teams, the Bulls, they had to shuffle a little bit, especially with Oudendal being injured, their regular captain. Sony Akane, he becomes the captain. The Tongan Tutavaki comes in for his first game for the Bulls. First start, first game, it's going to be a big one for him. Maybe that brings that little bit of an attacking spark that they have needed so far. Also, Papier comes in at number 9. That also makes the game a little bit quicker. It also brings on a little bit of a running edge to the back line and also a little bit of an attacking flair for them. And then they also shuffled the loose forwards a little bit to make space for Van Staden at number 6, and he's going to be important for them to win balls at the ruck. Then the Jaguares, they basically shuffled their whole team around. You can just look at it. The only guy still in is their loose forwards and their prop. And they do this a lot. They do play with one team the one week and the next week they play with a different team. It's because they do travel a lot. So the Jaguares have been doing this for seasons in and season out. Last year they won it almost like that. And this is what you can consider more or less their first team. It's better than the team that played the Stormers, at least. Their whole back line, going from Bertranau, Bonella, De La Fuente, Moroni, Boffelli, Cancelliere and Carreras, all of them are world-class backline players. The backline itself is world-class and they can score a lot of tries in that one. Bonella, he comes in after his little bit of an injury, with Miotti really playing well while he's been absent. He drops to the bench, but Bonella probably comes in to pin the Bulls back into their own half. He does that very well. He does kick a lot this season. Last year in 2019, the Jaguares was one of the sides that kicked the most. Up front, they made changes as well, and that's to bring 2 of their best players into the game, Kremer and Petty. Those guys are very dangerous if you play fantasy rugby. Put them in your sides. Now, Petty, he's one of the most successful line-out jumpers in the competitions. Look, the Bulls desperately need a win this weekend, but I don't think it's going to be this weekend around. The travel factor does not apply to the Argentinians. They travel a lot. They know how to handle it. The Jaguares team is much more dangerous than the Bulls one. The Bulls have that debutant in their midfield, which could be weird for them. The backline might not tick into gear for a while. But I do think it might be narrow, so I think the Jaguares will win by 6 points. Guys, let me know your predictions for this weekend's games down in the comments below. Also tell me which games you are most excited for, and then check out any of these videos popping up next to me. Cheers.